gonna show you how to make a dry erase board for about 13 bucks minimum, but you could decorate it up and do about $25 to make it really pretty. So Home Depot is the place you need to go because Lowe's, their board that I'm gonna show you, has a different coating and it doesn't work as well as Home Depot. So what you're gonna look for is down here, it's $13.97 and it's panel board. And it's a white board, and what you're gonna wanna do is pull it out and check it that there's no marks or scuffs on it. Because sometimes this panel board is real thin and a little bit of wood will come through, and that's not good for your dry erase marker. So it looks like we've got a good board here, and we'll take this up to the front and check out in just a second. Okay, so what we're gonna do to make our whiteboard not look like we just threw a board on the wall is we're gonna cover up the nails and everything with this siding. Now it's super cheap, it's not real siding, or real wood anyways, it's this composite. So you're gonna need 3 sheets of this minimum. It's $8.48 per piece. All right guys, so now that you have your 3 pieces of siding and your miter board, the next thing you're gonna wanna do is to cut your siding down. Now I've already gone and done it, but I'll show you the process just so you can follow along if you're unfamiliar with how to use this. This is your miter saw. Lots of people have these, they're very common. I'm borrowing this from Kayla's dad. I'm sure if you don't have one, you can ask to borrow one. The reason why we want a miter saw is a miter saw allows us to do a 45-degree angle by adjusting the angle of the blade. So we go at 45, it locks in, you can screw it down, and that's how we're gonna get a nice corner piece, so when we put the 4 corners together, they match up. When you're measuring, you're gonna wanna measure from the longest part to the longest part, the outside edges, and this is 4 feet, which is gonna match up perfectly with the side. So when you go to cut your wood, or your siding, you're gonna line it up here, and where you mark your 4 feet distance, again, that's from side to side, that's where you're gonna have the blade match up here. And before you pull down or cut anything, you're gonna come down and just touch the blade without spinning it to make sure it's lined up. Some of the newer models will have a laser beam.
It's in essence a sophisticated heat beam, which we called a laser.
And that's awesome, but remember, keep your hands away from the blade and wear eye protective gear. Even though it's got this shield on it, it will cause pieces to go everywhere, and it's best just to always be safe. If you've done everything right, you'll have 2 8-feet long pieces from tip to tip with just a 45-degree angle off of them. And then your third piece, if you did it just right, you'll have 2 4-feet long pieces that also from long tip to long tip make a nice 45. And that's gonna be your 2 sides and your top and bottom. Now, if you decide to not use your full 4x8 board, just match it up. So if it's 6 feet by 4 feet, then 6 feet obviously is how long your top cut's gonna be. So now that you've got all your pieces, time to hang it on the wall. So mine's already hung on the wall, but what you need to do is find a stud finder. They're super cheap. Harbor Freight has a nice cheap one here, and what's great about this is it also finds metal and volt, making sure you're not gonna drill into a wire and cause a short and a house fire somehow. So the next thing you're gonna do is you need to find the studs in the walls to know where to hang up your board so it doesn't get ripped out of the wall. Now, if you don't wanna find studs, totally fine. You can get some drywall anchors because that's what we're drilling into here. But I like putting into the stud because I know it's not gonna get ripped down or someone's gonna bump into it and accidentally have it come out of the wall. So stud finder is a super great tool for any homeowner. And let's double check it works. Yeah, it does. Oh yeah. Anyways, so a stud finder works by put it up to the wall and make sure your setting's on stud. We have one that does volt and metal. We got this from Harbor Freight. Put it up there, and then just start moving it around left and right. Oh, and it looks like there's a stud right here. So we've got a stud right outside of where we hung it up, and I knew that going into this. So studs in a wall are 16 to 24 inches apart from one another. So behind the wall, these studs are these pieces of wood that go up and down that hold your house up. And that's what we want to go into because that means we're not drilling into this chalky material, we're drilling into a piece of wood that's going to hold this board up on the wall. So another easy way to find or at least identify where a wall stud is any outlet in your home is going to be attached left or right to a wall stud. So taking your finder, you can do stud, hold it off of there, click, and we've got a stud right here. So we know we've got a piece of wood here, and this is attached this way to that piece of wood. Okay guys, so the next thing you're gonna wanna do is take your 4x8 board, measure out the studs across 8 feet. But you also gotta remember, you want it to look pretty. So what I did is, I know my door is gonna be open, so I measured from when the door's open to the center, and that's where I hung my board. When you're doing a project like this, you're gonna need some screws. I've got a couple loose, but these guys will do it for you. This is a wood screw, and it's gonna go into some wood. That's the stud. So use your wood screw to go into wood. It's a very complicated industry. So once you got your studs marked, have a buddy hold this up. Put this up there with one of them ray guns, also known as a screwdriver. So you can take a screwdriver and put it up on the wall. Once you know where your studs are, so we've got a stud right here on this board, so then you're gonna take your screw, and about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch, you're gonna take this, line it up where your stud is, and start drilling for oil.
The only answer is drill, drill, drill.
It's gonna grab into that stud, and you'll know it's into the stud, and I know I say stud a lot because it's a fun word to say. It'll go into that stud because it'll get harder to drill, and it will start really getting sucked in. If it goes into that hole and just starts spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning, well then you're not in the stud, and you've done it wrong. So that's what we've done here. Now it's up, but we've got a little problem. These edges are not being held down. So my solution, which is a cheap and dirty one, is you can take a little bit of glue if you are okay gluing to your walls, but I don't recommend it. What we did is we used sticky tack, that blue tack that holds up to 2 pounds, and we did a nice long bead of it, and we just pushed it onto the wall. That's because we didn't want to do too much damage to the wall. The other option is you can get these screws and screw into the drywall, but don't go too far, otherwise it won't grip. Or there are anchors that are built just for a drywall that go into the drywall, hold real tight, and then you put a screw through it, and that will also help. Now we're gonna do some siding. So what I found is I have to do this project alone because Kayla is not willing to help. No, I'm just kidding, she totally is. But I wanna do it so as though you're home alone and you don't have anyone to help. So what I've done is I've gotten more of that sticky tack I told you about that I'm using to hold down the edges, and I place it along here. Now, you will think that it is strong enough to hold this very light piece of wood up here, but you would be wrong. This is literally just to hold it up there for a little bit while I have time to hammer in the nails. I also like doing this method because it lets me put up all 4 sides at once and make sure everything is really square and perfect, and I don't have to go back to the blade and cut off a little more and trim down. So when I do, I just want to cover this, or when I do what I do, eh? So now we're gonna take this thing and put it up on this wall. I suck at this. Why am I on YouTube? Okay. Now you've got your siding. You've got this hung up on the wall. You got your blue tack to help you out and get it all framed up nice and square. So we're gonna put this up here. Now when you're hanging up your corner pieces, you can overhang a little to the outside and give yourself a little more writing room, but you really just wanna use this to hide those nails. And it's also nice because you're not gonna see the edge of the board stick through, which isn't as pretty as this siding. So now you've got this up on the wall, you put your drywall and or your wood screws into the wall, into your studs. We've got the blue tack holding up this for now, which looks good, but it is gonna fall off unless we do something a little more permanent. And that is why I'm getting these guys. They are finishing nails, but they're actually called panel board nails. This board is so light, you could hang it just with nails on a wall. It's not a very heavy piece of wood. But what I like about these panel board nails is that they're white. And that means when I hammer these in, you're not gonna notice them in there. Now I went around and squared up all the corners to make sure they fit exactly square. So now I'm gonna take some of these panel board nails and tack up that molding, and we'll be done with this awesome project. All right guys, I've got my Manly hammer. It's a hammer, it's manly. It has nothing to do with the color. I've got this all set up how I want it. I've got my panel board nails. And all we're gonna do is I'm gonna come in, and you can try and hide it and make it all purdy like, but I ain't that fancy city folk kind. So I'm just gonna go right where I know the panel board is and start at the top and just drive in this nail. I'm gonna hold the panel board because it might want to bounce around because that sticky tack stuff is not gonna hold it. So, bam, done. Just a couple more now. And they just look like little white dots because we use the finishing nails. So I'm gonna finish up doing it. I don't know guys, I'm sorry. I've got a couple more to do, it's a long day. Now we've got our border up and we nailed it in. I only used 2 on the side because the 4 feet long piece didn't really need a lot more nails. But the top part I ended up putting 5 across the top. So 2 corners, 2 a little farther in and 1 in the middle because it did bow out a little. So now this thing looks fresh as death, which makes no sense because death is not fresh, but it's fresh. This is fresh. Ignore the saying. So this looks really great. It's framed. It doesn't look like I just stuck a board up on my wall. And this totally works as a whiteboard. It erases and everything. The one thing you're gonna wanna remember about this board is that the longer you leave your marker up there, it will soak in a little. So if you use a little bit of vinegar or Windex, it will totally clean this board all the way 100% back to like clean. But it doesn't erase perfectly all the time unless you have a little bit of Windex, which that happens even with regular whiteboards. So perfectly awesome whiteboard. Board cost me 13 bucks. Siding cost me 20 bucks, so more than the board. And then just a couple nails and screws that you might have lying around. And that's it. That's what we did to make a $13 minimum, about $40 whiteboard on my wall, full size, awesome in my office. If I went out and bought a whiteboard this big, it would easily run me $500. So this is a great way to make something that looks awesome. It matches the molding in my office, so it looks like it was a part of the house the whole time. So, thanks for joining me here. Pay attention to this red rum word and do that thing you do. And if I can get any better, please leave it in the comments because I'm totally still not good at this thing. I'm better live. Not so much talking. So yeah, I did a thing. You can do it too. It's pretty cheap. Great for kids. Hang it low. Pew pew. Get a... So they're about studs are a standard distance apart, and they are, I should double check. Okay, Google. Okay, Google. How far apart are studs in a wall?
According to Westlake Ace Hardware, when a home is framed, the wall studs are usually spaced 16 or 20.
So once you find one stud, most studs and walls are 16 inches to 24 inches apart consistently throughout the home. Alright, so you're going to take your stud finder and find the studs behind your wall that fit behind the 4x... I cannot talk today at all. It is terrible. Yeah. Good.